Let's go.
That's neither here nor there. Welcome everybody to another interview with NerdTots. This is first of hopefully many. We've never done this before. We're going to see how it goes. Hopefully neither Don or I fuck it up in any kind of way. Chances are we might. But today we have the director of The Other Side. You can check the trailers out on YouTube. Check them out. It's dope as shit. Hopefully we'll get more of The Other Side coming in the future. Director Damian Alpizar.
Hey, what's up, everybody? How y'all doing out there?
I fucked it up there. I fucked it up there now. I fucked it up there now. I seen his face. I seen his face. I fucked it up, Don.
Nah,
Get me out of here.
You got it just fine. We'll dub you. Don't worry. That's what ADR's for. Give him some bad Chinese lip sync when he does it.
Shit, I actually like that idea. Let's roll with that. But at least make it look cool. Don't just make me
We got to get that Latino guy from like Telemundo to be like Damian Alpizar and be like, what? No way. He said it that way.
And have my lips move twice, and all you'll hear is go. All right. Well, I asked Don to invite you here because he's been talking about you for the longest now, and I wanted to see your work, and I am a fan. You've turned me into a fan, and I don't like horror movies at all.
All right.
Especially me or my wife. My wife don't even watch horror movies if it's after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Sun's going down. We don't watch horror movies at the house.
People that don't like horror movies, to me, all I'd say is that you just have an active imagination. It's not that you don't like horror movies; it's that you get too involved in them and you can't turn them off.
Right there. Yeah, right there.
So you like them. You just need to watch them like cartoons afterwards or something.
I've tried that before, but in my head, the cartoons are doing everything that I just watched. I could be watching some kids' cartoons. All of a sudden, somebody just come out.
Nice.
So, I got a couple questions for you. You were born in Cuba.
I was, yes. I'm an import. I had green card and everything.
At what age did you come over?
I came over when I was a year old, hence why I don't have an accent. One of my future films will be about how I got over here and what my parents had to do to get me over here. And I'm going to intercut it with actual interviews from my parents. So.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those films that I'll do. I'm going to be a little older. Hopefully they're still around. Maybe they might not want to be around, but it's going to be more. It's something. If you had to think about anything along the lines of a very heavy, dramatic film that some of these directors do, I'm thinking about Steven Spielberg. I'm thinking about Scorsese. I'm just thinking about those films that are just heavy.
Yeah.
That's what this would be. So I want to have a little fun with my films first before I get into the heavy stuff.
Get the light stuff out the way first, and then go dive into the deep stuff.
Yeah, man, because that's going to be deep diving into some emotional things. And this film has something that's near and dear to my heart, but it's not dealing with my parents,
Yeah. So I get it. So at what age did you get into horror movies or in that genre?
Man, interestingly enough, I was in Catholic school coming up, and I didn't really see my first horror film until I was probably in the 5th grade, which is kind of old if you think about it, as far as being introduced to an entire genre of film.
Yeah.
And it was a dumb horror movie. It was one of those Dr. Paul Bearer type horror movies. It was called Don't Play with the Dead or something like that. And it was the first time I ever saw a zombie.
Adon, you're our video icon, artist here. You know all the movies. Have you heard of this movie?
Oddly enough, that name does sound very familiar.
Jesus,
it's a cheesy film. Some high schoolers or some college kids go to a graveyard and they do a seance and then zombies. Easy plot.
Anytime anybody brings up any kind of movie, I ask Adon if he's ever watched it because he makes fun of me because I don't really watch movies like that. He watches every movie.
Dude, Adon is a fountain of knowledge.
Yes, that's why I ask him every time. Have you heard of this? What you think? He gives me the lowdown.
I feel like if he hasn't heard of it, it's not worthy of a Don's attention. Since not worthy of my attention. That's how I rate my viewing schedule.
At least twice a month, the Don gives me a list of movies that I should watch.
And he still
I never
doesn't.
get to them. I never get to them.
So
Hey,
that's a level of honor that he's actually saw your films, because he really doesn't watch movies and barely watches shows.
it's not about not watching movies or watching shows. I just never have the attention span to do it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But I did watch your stuff, which we're gonna get into. But I got a couple more questions
Of course.
before we get
Yeah.
into the juicy stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, like I said, I watched my first horror movie, and it was the first time I ever, like, aside from the biblical sense of, like, Big J rising from the dead, um, I really hadn't thought of the concept of zombies, people coming back from the dead and eating. So it scared me. And then my dad, who's a very logical man, he says you cannot be afraid of something that you understand. So rather than turning on the lights or giving me a night light, he gave me a book about this big. There was all the monsters, every history of the monster, the lore of the monsters, everything that had to do with all the monsters. He's like, here's this book, read it from cover to cover. I read it from cover to cover, so now I knew, like, all the lore of where certain things came from, and you know, like the half truths and the real truths and stuff like that. And that was me in fifth grade. So that pretty much sealed the deal for me.
So in grade school, you were the guy to go. You were the go-to guy when you wanted information of a certain monster.
Dude, I would just told you I was in Catholic school. My name is Damian. I'm the only Damian in a Catholic school with nuns and priests. What do you think my life was like growing up in elementary school?
I'm guessing. I'm guessing your hands were battered from the nuns.
I got a few batteries, but I also got a lot of Omen references. I was at altar boy. I rang the bells. You know what I mean? Now I'm doing horror films for fun. That's my thing. So it's like,
How life has taken you so different. So, at what point did you think this was a career for you?
Man, I like a big pastime of mine just growing up was just telling stories. Um, I like campfire stories. I like writing stories. I love comic books. So I was always someone that tried to, like, come up with stories and make stories, and I'd write short stories and pass them to kids, and they would read them and they'd be like, "Oh my God, that's so cool." So I used to do my own choose your own adventures and stuff like that. So I always knew that I was going to tell stories. Going into, and at first, actually, I thought it was going to be video games. I thought I was going to be like someone who comes up with a story for video games, and that's what I put out there. Uh, Turns out that I met a guy at working one day, and he happened to be a producer from New York. His name's Barry, and he took me under his wing. I did graphics for him, and he showed me how to use a camera, and that's it. I mean, from that point forward, I was like, okay, I'm gonna tell my stories on TV or in the movies.
Was there any particular story or movie or anything that pushed you into it? That you
Um, what made me what flipped the switch for me was Robert Rodriguez, 100%. When he came out with El Mariachi, and actually I saw Dust Till Dawn, and I heard of El Mariachi, but when I heard about a Latino director, which at the time I didn't know any Latino directors unless they were doing like novelas, but to hear about a Latino director who made a film for $7,000 on the grind, he shot it, he edited it, he did his own special effects and sounds and stuff like that, and he even did that for a couple other films as well. I was like, that's me. That's what I do. I know how to write it. I know how to shoot. I know how to edit. I know how to light. You know what I mean? I just wanted to learn everything so that way I didn't have to depend on nobody, because I figured, man, I couldn't get my friends to come and make films with me. So I had to be able to do everything and then just get like one actor or two actors and put them in front of a camera and just do stuff with them. And then my boys, who were in a pop group, they were actually musicians. Yeah, I was in the boy band thing for a little while. Not me personally. I wasn't singing and dancing, but I did reap some of the benefits. The point is, we started doing music videos and stuff like that. And I used all the skills that I learned from him to make music videos, and then from videos to commercials. And you know how that goes. Even Ridley Scott started that way, which I thought was pretty awesome. So I'd say Ridley Scott and Robert Rodriguez are like my two directors that kind of got me into that feeling of wanting to do stuff. Alien is like one of my all-time favorite films.
Oh, I remember. We've had that discussion.
Yes. I think I won that discussion.
That was a bit debatable at most. And no, you did not.
I feel like there was shots fired there.
There's always shots fired, but in a brotherly love kind of way.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's one thing I noticed about you. You do a lot. You put a lot on your plate, and like you do the directing, you do a little bit of the writing, the VFX, and like you are really in there. Is there like if you had to take one of those aspects, is there like one that is more on top of your list of things I prefer to do, like you prefer to do? When choosing a project, or is it like debating on what project you're on that at that time?
Well, my thing is, I love being on set, and I tell anyone who wants to be in this industry, get on set as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So having those different skill sets has allowed me to be on set as like a visual effects supervisor. And I'm not directing it, I'm not producing it, but I'm working with the directors and the producers. I've gone on set as a producer with, for example, like on Nightmare. I wasn't directing it. I helped write it. I wrote some of the scenes. Actually, Dom let me direct a couple scenes in there too. But we were on set and we were problem solving and we are putting the film together. And you have to do all these things to make a scene happen. So as much as I love directing, if I had to say if I was going to take one, I want to be a director, and director producer because they kind of now go hand in hand. Um, that's my focus, and I didn't realize that all the other things that I've done have just allowed me to understand the jobs that other people will take on when I'm directing and when I'm producing. I understand what my visual effects guy is looking for. I understand what my editor is going to need. I understand what my sound guy is looking for. I didn't do sound, but I worked with enough sound people, boy band, to know what sound needs. But I didn't realize I took the very long way around to directing.
Mm-hmm.
like I could have just picked up the camera and just started directing when I was like 15, 16, 17. But I ended up doing like all this other stuff, and it paid the bills. Computer animation and visual effects paid the bills. But at least now when I take on the director's reins, I think luckily, I thank all those experiences because I don't underestimate anyone's job. I don't ever think that this person's job is less than that person's job because I've been a lot of those jobs. I've been a PA, I've gone and grabbed the coffee, I know how important it is to get lunch right. You're on set for 12 hours. Please get my lunch right. You know what I mean? Those are things that I'm kind of very grateful for that I got a chance to do.
See, and I was going to ask you if all those were really help mold you into the director you're becoming and are at this moment, going through all those hoops to get here.
Yeah, it's like anything else, dude. It's training, right? If you're going to train for the fight, you don't just train the hands. You got to train your feet, especially like if you just think about it like MMA, right? You got to train your cardio, your strength, your feet. You got hands, you got to grapple. You got to have a lot of skill sets just to win that fight. And if anyone tells you that getting on set isn't a struggle, isn't a fight, they haven't been on set. So you just got to train for it. So don't get me wrong, there are people that just do one thing, but I don't know anybody today that just does one thing. Christopher Nolan doesn't just direct. He also produces. He also writes. You know what I mean? Quentin writes, directs, produces, sometimes acts. Like, I don't know any director today that just does one thing, really.
And speaking of acting, I was gonna ask you, like, one day, are you gonna like come across the screen and actually bestow the world as a performer too?
I will jump in front. I'll be the guy who's like, "Here's your tip, madam. Here's your car, madam." I'll be that guy. No, I took acting classes, and I actually still study acting, not to be an actor, but to speak better actor. One of those other things that I realized that actually, I don't know if y'all know Ken Lawson, Ken-L. He's in the House, and he's a bunch of shows. He was on Moesha for a while.
Oh, okay.
I was working with him, and I was giving him notes because and we have a great rapport, and I was giving him notes. He was the first actor because he was a professional actor. He's been on TV shows and stuff like that and in films. He was the first actor to pull me aside and say, "Hey, man, your notes are great. Could you just not tell me from across the room? Like pull me aside, talk to me. You know what I mean? And then and stuff like that." He just kind of gave me some tips, and I was like, "Oh man, you know what? I'm being the TV director. I'm being that guy who yells action and cut and okay, let's do it again. And hey, can you? You know what I mean? I was doing this stuff but my directing etiquette and my how to actually get what I wanted out of a professional actor, I realized I was asking him to do reactions, and that's what you do in commercials. You talk to a model, and you're like, smile. Okay, now look this way. Okay, now I need you to just toss your hair and laugh. And you do that because the models aren't trying to act; they're just trying to give you exactly what you need for that little piece of commercial. But he's an actor. And I was like, oh, I don't know how to talk to an actor. I talk to models all day. I do commercials all day. Boy bands and musicians, they perform. Hey, perform. Play your guitar hard. You don't tell the guitarist to be like, can you play your guitar harder? Can you just, harder? You just like play your guitar. So I realized, okay, I need to learn how to speak actor. So I took acting classes. And I realized very quickly that when I was in a scene, the actors came out and they did something brilliant. And I was thinking, and I was like, man, I really like that energy. I like that. Okay, and I'm thinking, and I'm going, oh wait, I got lines. I went straight into directing mode. I was like, I'm in the scene. I got lines. Hold on, wait. So, yeah, no, I realized acting not for me.
So not even doing a Stan Lee cameo in every one of your projects?
I could do a Stan Lee. Like I said, I could be the people bump into me thinking I'm Hugh Hefner. You know what? More like I want someone to bump into me and be like, oh, excuse me, Mr. Momoa. And I'm like, huh? What? Yeah. And I'll be like, what? Oh, yeah. See? I'll pull one of those. That's it.
So I know you do horror right now. Do you have any aspirations for, besides the personal piece that you want to do, which is going to be very serious? Like, do you have any aspirations for, like, what's the next genre? Or do you want to, like, maybe ease your way into, like, horror comedy or, like, there's not really a horror romance. There's kind of.
They can be. I mean, I think Warm Bodies was a good horror romance.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to pull one out. But
I was thinking Near Dark.
Yeah. Yeah. So, funny thing is that I love sci-fi, and I would go towards sci-fi naturally. And my sci-fi ranges from, trying to accomplish something like a Star Wars or something of, something epic, all the way to something more ex machina style, where it's very intimate and very, very, like a think piece. I have scripts that I'm, and stories that I could work with other directors on. So I may, direct one film, produce another, direct a film, produce another. But I would definitely like to go into the sci-fi realm. Now, secretly, I like romantic comedies, and it's not so secret because I'm saying it on YouTube. But my wife has some great ideas for romantic comedies. Two of them in particular that I'm like, you know what? I'll roll with that because they're just really, really fun ideas. Although I will probably lean towards the horror, sci-fi, and adventure type films. I love fantasy. I would love to do a fantasy adventure. I think of movies for escapisms, and I guess that's why I also like the real films that have to do with like real things. I love watching them, but I don't think I would want to live in that world for a year and a half making them. Like that seems like a long time to be in a dramatic film.
Yeah.
I don't know. That just seems like a heart heavy, brain heavy kind of thing. And I go to movies to escape. Like I love watching popcorn and watching something be like, this is so dumb, but you know what I mean? I love that. So I want to make films that entertain, and I think that's where my heart lies at first. And they still have messages because you can't have a story without a decent message. But I still want to have fun doing them, and I want people to have fun watching them. So I'll probably lean in that direction first. But yeah, I can't say that. Like I don't think I'll ever do crime films, like you know what I mean, like a serious, like a Scorsese kind of film. Like, not that I don't love them, I do. I just don't see myself putting myself in the story, and where I can sit there and I can watch this story and unfold the story, and then be in love enough with the characters to guide that story all the way to its end. If it was a crime drama about like apes, like a Planet of the Apes meets, the Goodfellas or something like that, I could do that. Because then there's something sci-fi and fun about it. You know what I mean? I could do that.
Funny enough, I know there's comic book stories that are like that. They actually do stuff like that. Like there's a Detective Chimp in DC Comics.
Which is great.
See,
yeah, he's actually a very popular character.
Great.
I could do that. I can take a chimp and deal with all the nuances of being a chimp and a detective. I can do that. I can get behind that one.
Or it's like even Deadpool. Deadpool has Hit Monkey. That's
also
another character. So Right there.
My company name is 208 Monkeys, so you know I can do anything with monkeys. I can do anything with that.
Ooh, and you haven't worked with animals yet, right?
I have.
You have?
I have. I was on both Bernie the Dolphin 1 and Bernie the Dolphin 2 as the visual effects supervisor, and at some points I worked very closely with the animals to the point of almost to handling them and stuff like that. Just making sure that working with the with PETA and stuff like that to make sure that the animals, especially if they were visual, doing something that was like kind of tricky, making sure that they were safe and that no animals were harmed in the making of those films. So I got to work with dolphins and turtles and birds and lizards, like the dragon iguanas and toads. Yeah, no, actually, I worked with a lot of animals.
See, if somebody would have did their homework like they were told to, you would have saw that on his credits.
I did. You know what? I did. It's just I
I
didn't
did my
think
homework.
he actually worked
I knew
directly
that.
with the animals. I didn't think he did
It says it on the credits that he actually helped with the animals.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, you was underprepared.
This is why we're a team. You handle one part, I handle the other.
But yeah, you asked the question without finding out. You let me down, Blue. You let me down. On that note, how did the Nightmare Return to Elm Street come about?
That
Good
was
segue.
Yeah, it was. That was my boy Dominic Smith. We were on set, and you got to imagine that in our pond, once you start finding a film family, that kind of becomes your family. You break apart and go on different sets, but then you always end up on some project together. So me and Dom, we were on set, and we were sitting there having coffee. It was a cold morning, and he literally goes up to me. He's like, "Hey, man, are you a Freddy fan?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I love Nightmare on Elm Street. It's one of my favorite horror movies. I prefer that over the Jason series, for example." And
You're not the only one.
yeah, so he's like, "Hey, I'm thinking about," and Dominic Smith, is like the darker version of me, darker, bigger, more muscular version of me. He's like, "Look, I want to do a Nightmare on Elm Street film, but we're just going to do trailers. No actual short film, just a trailer for a feature, and hopefully we could get a buzz to get the feature going." And I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "I want it to take place after the last film in the series, so that all the Nightmare stuff, including New Nightmare, all that stuff was included." I said, "All right." And he just kicked it, and then we started, penning up ideas. And then I would write like a little bit of a scene, and he would write a little bit of a scene, and then we're like, okay. So we were trying to think of like really cool scenes to put together that would go together in a trailer that we still had to know the overarching story, so we knew what the story was about. But there were little caveats, there were little things. So we were like, we know that Freddy loses his power when people don't believe him as much. In fact, in Freddy versus Jason, one of the biggest things that Freddy was doing, he was unleashing Jason so people could be afraid and get nightmares again, and he can come back strong. So we know Freddy has that weakness. So we were like, okay, how do we bring Freddy back? We know that Freddy, from the moment that he died to the moment he started attacking children, there was a bit of time, so he can go into what's considered like a hibernation, and then only takes like one spark to start, coming back, and especially if it's down the bloodline. So we used that rule, and then we took the gentleman, the character in the Nightmare, the dad. He, believe it or not, his name is blanking right now because it was a.
You want the actor or you want the character?
Well, I know the actor's name. I'm talking about the character's name.
Oh, Drew.
But Drew, thank you. He was a survivor from one of the previous nightmares. So we actually made it look like, okay, here's the last nightmare. Another nightmare happened, and then our nightmare is happening after that. And we're flashing back to what happened to him in high school while he's dealing with Freddy attacking his children. We wanted Freddy to attack children, not teenagers. We want him to go, and actually attack children like he originally did. And the problem is that how do you explain to someone who you're married to, you want to bury all that stuff about Freddy. You want to repress the memories. You don't want to have that stuff. But how do you explain to somebody that, by the way, there's a supernatural dude who's attacking our children in their nightmares. I'm not crazy. And as you can tell in the trailer, when one of the girls dies, I'm also not guilty. So not only am I not crazy, I'm not guilty, and now I know Freddy's after my other kid. So if you see the trailer 3, one of the beautiful moments in that trailer is Freddy teaching the little girl, because he's trying to get power back. He's trying to come back into existence. Freddy's teaching the little girl, then 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. So he's teaching her his theme song, and it was just like so many little brilliant moments that were like, oh my god, we want Platinum Dunes and all of them to give us with a cease and desist.
Which I like to point out while I was watching that trailer, because I'm gonna give praise when praise is due. Don sent me the list of trailers of how you like them to be watched. So I watched them in that order, and when I got to trailer 3, and he's sitting there with the little girl teaching her that song, it reminded me of when I first saw Elm Street, and I'm like, I shouldn't be watching this. I gotta go to sleep in a little. I shouldn't be watching this. Which I found all of those trailers to be fantastic. It was great. It pushed me to the point where, is there any talks any more about pushing that into a full-fledged film?
Man, I'll tell you what, and this is y'all are my witnesses, okay? We put that out there. It got over 9 million views on one of the videos, and if you'll look, you'll see a bunch of people ripped off that trailer, and they use it on their YouTube channel. So I think at one point we combined everyone that copied it, everyone that reposted it, and our views, and it was like something over like 20 million trailers. It was that big. And 20 million views. And we had directors from other Freddy. Dom went out and reached out to them, the director of, I think, Nightmare 2 and 4 and some other ones. And he sent them the trailer, and they replied, and he posted their tweets like, wow, great work. You know what I mean? And they liked, his directing of that. And I sat there and I was like, dude, we put together this thing for one purpose only. We want a cease and desist letter so we can start a conversation, and we're like, come on, let's get them to toss us a bone, because they were talking about they've been talking about Kevin Bacon doing Freddy, and they've been talking about so many other people doing Freddy, but we're like, come on guys, give us a bone. What we're gonna do is we're gonna do the Nightmare right. A lot of people didn't like the new reimagining of Nightmare. I think the only problem with it was the CG makeup on his face and stuff like that. But they brought in a lot of Freddy was still sarcastic, but he was darker. Wes Craven was making him more darker when he made New Nightmare. Wes Craven was already going down that road. We know that Freddy still has to have his moments, his one-liners and stuff like that. But to scare an audience today, especially an audience that's grown up on Saw and grown up on all these other films that have come out since then, Freddy's got to be darker. He can't be jokey all the time. So, yes, making Freddy a threat, making him dark, still having his one-liners. We were doing all that just to get them to say, stop it! And they didn't. They left it alone. They let it ride. Sci-Fi Wire, Sci-Fi Channel ranked it the #1 fan film. So it got it got us a lot of stuff. Hell, it helped us with the financing of The Other Side. So
Segue. Now, with this new project, The Other Side, what is the take and what is the story behind it for others that may not know?
All right. So everybody that I have encountered, and I've done this at random restaurants everywhere, and this is actually one of the things we did with the gentleman, Tony, who helped us get this project kicked off. Was my writing partner, Nick, and I. We've sat there and we've said, yo, have you ever played Bloody Mary? And pretty much everybody that I've ever asked has played Bloody Mary. But here's a follow-up question I'm going to ask you guys. Have you played Bloody Mary ever in your lives? Jay, maybe
Yes.
not, because maybe that's why you're afraid of horror now.
I have
played Bloody Mary.
No, I have things that's happened to me in the past.
All right.
I was dragged into the bathroom.
Supernatural, so I have reasons not to do stuff like that, but I have played Bloody Mary before.
All right. So, and I'm pretty certain that most people play Bloody Mary, and no knock on Candyman, because I like Candyman. But the original Calling to the Mirror several times was Bloody Mary before Candyman came out. Mm-hmm. And I can promise you that. There's no history lesson there. My age alone will tell you that. Um, but the point is that people play Bloody Mary. But then you ask the second question. I'm going to follow up. What's her backstory? Why does she come out of the mirror? Do you know?
Nope. I just heard it as a kid. Do it, and something's gonna happen.
Right.
Nobody's ever gone deep into the backstory behind it.
Right. So we started going into it and we couldn't find anything. And then there was an interesting twist to our research and history. There have been multiple women and entities that have been summoned all the way back to China that involve blood, women, mirrors, and or lanterns or some sort of summoning ritual to bring back a vengeful spirit. And we were like, well, wait a minute. What if this is an isolated incident? What if Bloody Mary is something that gets passed down? And more importantly, what is she hunting? What is she looking for? So taking, you always take something and you say, okay, well, here's the premise. It's the premise on Bloody Mary. But then you go, well, what motivates this monster? And I always ask that about any monster and anything. You know what I mean? Like good villains, Thanos, for example. The reason why people enjoy Thanos is because he had a very clear understanding motivation. And wrong or right, people, were like, dang, you know what? Thanos does have a point, Not the best point, and he's psycho, but, people agreed with him. So my thing was, we were coming up with this. I was like, okay, why is Bloody Mary so vicious? What's motivated her? What's corrupted her to be that way? Because if you're born bad and you're just a bad person the entire life, then no one cares. You're just bad. You're just a bad apple. But most people aren't born bad. Most people aren't born evil. Most people don't become spirits that will haunt you through a mirror. So what happened there? So we explore that, not in this short, but in the full feature we do. But what we do see in this short is, and obviously, people who will watch this short eventually will get the idea. We explore who's the bigger monster in the room. Now, I believe, have you two seen the short?
I have, and I have blessed him with the viewing as well. So Jay
I
has
have watched it. I watched it yesterday because again, I did my homework.
Yes.
I made sure you had that part done.
So your take was me do the homework, you just sit there and look pretty.
Sounds
90% of the work.
Sounds like the plan.
Let's not go crazy now. But yes, I have seen it, and what you're saying, you've done it justice. It comes through clearly. Now, is this short going to translate to something else down the road, or?
So yeah, I mean, I can spoil that. That's not a spoiler. When we created the short, the intention of the short, similar to Nightmare, was to get enough attention that we can then use it to, produce a feature. I like doing shorts sometimes for experimental purposes, but I prefer doing shorts with the idea of I'm going to do this so that I can show you we can do. Imagine this blown up, bigger budgets, the whole thing. So yes, we've penned and written, and we've gotten to the point that we're nearly finished with the feature version of the script, and we are in process of what I call pre-production. So yeah, the idea with the other side is that we will see a feature-length version of this, where this short is a piece somewhere here. Here's your feature. It's somewhere over here. It's a piece of that feature, that overall feature. What transpired before that, what transpires after that, is still a big mystery to everybody, but except us. I know exactly what happens. But for y'all, that's what we'll have a feature for.
With that being said, me and the Don will be extras if you ever need any. Two fat dudes that die on the floor, that don't move, don't have any lines, that just our glimpse in the screen, we'll do it. We would do it.
If nothing else, I mean, I haven't written that part in yet. Haven't figured out all my extras, but if nothing else, you guys can come up and do an exclusive behind the scenes.
Hey, I will hold you up to that.
You
I
know,
will hold you to that.
I'll
Now,
be at the production food table, just having a donut.
see, that's when you get your privileges revoked. Can't just be eating everybody's stuff, Adon.
That's what he's like. He's like, I'm doing my research over here at the production food table, and
right.
for the buffet,
Jay, they got bagels.
It's the true.
I don't want
scenes.
that. Now, is there anything new coming from you guys? Because it sounds like it's you and a certain other teammate that's been working on all these projects.
No, actually, so like my boy Nick, Nick Parlin, he's the one who co-wrote The Other Side with me. But I mean, honestly, dude, these things happen. Like you got a squad. So like I got Mike Brown, I got Conrad De La Torres, I got Todd Yantek. I got a squad, and it's Dominic and Scott and Brandon. I can go on forever. You saw the trailers, you saw the credits on the trailer, and that's the squad right there. But they're always, and that's one of the things. That's why I guess it keeps the sword sharp. So I just did two short films. One of them for a new director, Steven and Demler, and it's a short called Kill 'Em with Kindness. Now he has SNL background, and so it's a dark comedy, and I gotta tell you, it's a brilliant little film. But we just produced that one month and a half ago. It feels like a month ago. Maybe it wasn't that long. And then just recently, my boys just did a short film in Fort DeSoto, and they shot the whole thing on an iPhone with an anamorphic lens. And they went, and they have red cameras. They have expensive cameras, but they're like, no. We're gonna try to do this super indie. We're gonna make it like back to old school, one light, iPhone with a gimbal, whatever the case is. I mean, they got some toys, but like not bringing out the big red cameras, the big Fujian lenses or anything like that. And it looks brilliant. The story was already really good. And I was unit production manager on that one. So, and I'm also doing visual effects for that one. So I'm doing two roles. Again, Don, I'm doing two things. So yeah, man, I'm always trying to stay on set. I mean, that's the thing. I can't stress that enough. Anyone trying to get in this business, you get on set, you stay on set. You do anything you can to be on set, because that's where you make all your connections. That's where you find out where you fit. That's where you really get in to the nitty gritty, and you really understand. Okay, well, if I'm going to do this for my film, I'm going to at least need this or that or whatever. So many short films and so many films fall short just because they didn't think about sound. Or like, hey man, this is a great building, but it's right by the highway and trucks are going by all the time. So every time your actors talk, it's like, Adon, please, what I mean? And you're like, dang, man, we can't get a good take. So you think about all these things when you're on set a lot because you see the problems that they go through, and you're like, oh man, I gotta avoid that. I gotta watch out for that. I gotta look out for that. So that's why I try to be on set, man. It just keeps the sword super sharp.
I was going to ask, like, since you're talking about, like, you take on so many tasks and being the experience that you have, budgeting. I imagine budgeting is a huge thing that you have to focus on. Number one, like, what's the hardest thing that you would say is dealing with the budget? And number two, what's the craziest thing you had to do in order to keep the budget either in line or get that one shot that you want to do?
Okay. So there's a lot of, okay. All right. So the first thing is budgeting. Yes, super important. Is you can get your friends to come out and maybe shoot something for like a couple of hours for free, but even then you should at least buy them a beer or a pizza.
I want to go back to renegotiate my free one-off. I would like a beer.
There you go. If you think about it, like people don't think about it, like, oh, it's not budgeting. I'm like, yes, it is, because if you got like 4 or 5 friends that are coming to help you out, and the pizza costs you $20 and the beer costs you another 12, well, you have to make sure that you have it in the budget to at least give them beer and pizza. And I know that seems trivial, but then it's like, okay, so are they wearing their own clothes? All right, is there blood involved? Do you know how to make blood? You can buy blood. So like budget really does become a thing. The moment you start doing any project, I don't care what it is, setting up your decorations for Halloween, all of a sudden you're like, and everyone's done this. They go to Walmart, they go to buy one thing, They come back out, and it's like, why did I buy all this stuff?
That's why you can't go to Walmart.
Exactly. So that's the same thing with filmmaking. I mean, you go in there and you're like, okay, we're gonna just shoot this one scene, but I need a prop gun. Anyone got a prop gun? No, we're not using a real gun. Okay. Anyone got a prop gun that looks kind of real? Okay, well, let's go to Walmart and buy an airsoft gun. All right, cool. Now we got a gun. Oh man, you know what? It would really be cool, man, if we had a. You know what I mean? So like these things start to come up. So yes, you have to come up with a budget. You have to already say to yourself, even if I meet this budget, I want to be underneath it, or I might have to have like a 10%. You have to have a buffer because stuff happens, and I'll explain that one in a moment. Yeah, so budgeting is huge. And then one of the craziest things on a short film, let's go with a short film, with The Other Side, was a hurricane came through on my first day of shooting. So I had to I had to push my days over, and some scenes would have actually been bloodier, but because we had to do our blood scenes day 1 and our clean scenes day 2, and we shot the film in reverse basically, we didn't have enough crew to clean up the blood from the walls and repaint the walls and clean up blood up from the floor. So we had to be very, very careful about how much blood we put anywhere, so that way we can clean it and repaint it. Had it been the other way and the hurricane had not come through, I would have shot all the clean stuff first, and then on the second day just let the blood fly. Maybe that's a blessing, maybe not. I don't know now. I will never know. But if there's one thing I always wanted was just a little bit more blood, and that's because a hurricane. So like, how do you predict that? On Nightmare, talking about an expense that I wasn't two expenses I wasn't expecting. Another hurricane came through, and we had this house. You see the house that was the exterior on the trailer. It used to have a nice, pretty tree in front of it, and it was a nice yard. And when we got there, the tree was like that, and the yard was full of branches. So I had to spring up some cash and call a disposal company to come, because we could not shoot another day. We couldn't change our days. We had actors, we had crew, we had everyone there. We had a cop car coming out to do its lights and stuff. So you can't do anything. You can't move all these other pieces. So we got the people to come out, collect the trees, and actors, crew members, everybody picking up branches and leaves and raking and fixing it. And that's one of those things that you're just like, you look at everyone around, and you see everyone just raking, trying to get this thing clean so that we could do this shot, and you go, damn, I mean, I'm barely paying. Anyone's barely being paid. They're getting their pizza and beer and maybe a little bit of cash, little thank you dollars, but everyone's grinding. Everyone's here trying to make this happen. And that's when you feel so much love for your people. You're like, man, I couldn't do this. I really couldn't have done this without you. There's no way. Even though you only see 2 actors and maybe a director and some, like, there's no way without all you people we'd have pulled that off. So, yeah, man, budget, you got to have that 10%, that buffer to save your life, because things like a storm can literally come through and ruin your day. 2 hurricanes, 2 short films. Actually, and the one that we shot this past couple weekend, there was a hurricane in the Bay, so we got cloudy and rainy all day. So I need to stop shooting films in hurricane season. It slows down for me work-wise, so it turns out that this is the right time for us to get like our own creative things in, and they always seem to fall within these months. And I'm like, why are we doing this to ourselves? I should just make my own version of Sharknado.
Now, how important it is to actually, because you keep stressing how everybody that works on these things is a family. Now, how important is it to wisely pick those people?
Oh man, the thing is that this is one of those business, and this is why it's sometimes hard to get into it, is because you really do hire who you know. Once you see that person just bust their butts on a set, you remember them for life pretty much, and they go on your list. My number 1, my number 2, my number 3, number 4, because people get busy, so like your first option might not be available. But if that person who is like your number 5 on the list busts their butts once, twice, 3 times over, they because people start to get too busy. So like your number 1 might be at that cusp where he's not available anymore because he's getting ready to go to Atlanta, LA, New York, because he's on that cusp, right? He's going from your number 1 to someone else's number, like a bigger dude's number, 3. So you gotta someone will come up the ranks. So what I say is, doesn't matter how big the set is, doesn't matter how much you're getting paid. Uh, Most people that are doing these things, if you look at what they're doing, if they're regularly working in this industry, and you're on their set, you wanna show off. You want to show that you can be a team player and that you can do what you got to do. Um, because people remember that. They remember that so much because it does. Like I said, these things, they're 12-hour days, man. People don't, and sometimes longer if you're doing makeup and special effects and stuff like that. So you don't realize that if I like Jay, this is our first time really interacting, right? But from this point forward, if we were to spend 12-hour days, call times at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., all right, so we're both tired when we first meet up, and we don't finish until 6 p.m. Do you know how much time we spend together? How much getting to know each other we get? How much in between things we're talking about, whatever. By the time the week is over, I know about your kids, your favorite food, your color. We've dated more hours. We spent more hours together than most people date in a month. Okay,
Yeah.
you get to know people really quick, which means, can I spend another 12-hour days with this guy? Is this guy a jerk? Is this guy, is this person responsible? Did I have to clean up after him all the time? Like, you really make a decision right then and there. Do I want to go through that again with somebody that I don't get along with, that doesn't bust, that doesn't pull their own weight? You get to know that real quick. So
It's like that roommate. Like you want that trial period with that roommate in college, and then you go to back to the dorm. The head of the dorm is like, "Hey, can I change rooms?"
yeah, see, roommates are tricky, especially when they're assigned to you. And that's kind of how it is on a crew. You don't know. I mean, unless you're the one picking the crew, you don't know who you're working with, and there's always going to be new people. You just hope that they're professional. That's all. And they're not drinking wine and getting crunk and stuff like that.
We cannot be friends.
No.
Substitute the wine for tequila.
Well, I figured that we're talking about Bloody Mary. I have red wine in a horror glass. Look at that. See, it has a hand on it. So I was on theme. See, I'm in theme
Yes,
right now.
he's on point.
This is branding.
That's like us on D&D night when we go in theme. And I have my my D&D mug out.
Yeah.
Talking about D&D. Now, is there an idea remake that you would love to produce or direct of any movie that's come out?
Like a
That
big,
you
like a project
that you feel that you could do it 100 times better that been done already, that is near and dear to your baby heart.
But if I was gonna do something, I would want to take on He-Man.
He-Man.
I would want to take on He-Man. If we're talking about a reboot, because I mean, technically, there's already been a He-Man movie. And if I was going to redo a movie that's been done, and I think that today we can do a fantastic version of it, it would be He-Man. With the CGI that we have today, we can really build out that world. You can get and with the technology, kind of like they took Chris Evans and they made him look weak. You know what I mean? With the technology, you could take like a John Cena or someone like that, and you can make him look smaller, and you can believe that he's a prince, because He-Man, between the two, he swole, but he wasn't like a huge change. And I think that's one of the things, that him looking a little bit more princely and a little bit more humble. But then when he's He-Man, he's like, you're like, dude, I can't identify that dude. That dude's way too swole. You know what I mean? So I think we could do that. I think we could see, a rendition of Skeletor. Now that with the technology that we use with Thanos and stuff like that, I think we do renditions of Skeletor. That whole sci-fi tech piece, especially how the new cartoons came out. I think that would be a fantastic uh, film to take on. So if I wanted to take on a franchise, if we're talking about franchise, I'd do that. But man, Last Starfighter. If I wanted to reboot something else, I would redo Last Starfighter, and I actually would call it the Last Starfighters. It would be a sequel, and it would involve esports to find a squad of starfighters to go out and do the thing. So I would do something like that. I just probably gave away the plot to, if they ever do the Last Starfighters, they're like, wait a minute, write that down. But yeah, again,
copyright that, legal team. Giving you a lot of work today.
But again, I would take that on because I think, I love The Last Starfighter. I always, as a kid, and you have to imagine, yes, I'm old enough to say that I watched The Last Starfighter, and I was probably young enough to be like, damn, that would be really cool. um, because I did play Nintendo when I was younger, so that puts me at a slightly higher age bracket. Um, but as a kid, though, the idea that because I was never going to be Luke Skywalker because I wasn't born on another planet, and I was never going to be on Enterprise because that's all in the future. But the last Starfighter took place like right here and now, and I was being whisked away because I beat a game, and I was like really good at beating games. I really love beating games. So I was like, man, that's just a fantasy for a kid that any kid today can get behind. Like, who doesn't want to be like, yo, you're the best at D&D, or you're the best at this game? Guess what? A magical portal opens up, and because you are so good at D&D, I'm going to suck you in, and now you're going to be imbued with all the powers that you had, but now in the real fantasy world. Now you're in this.
I think he just started writing his plan for his one shot that he's thinking about.
So just imagine that, and so that's what the last Starfighter was. And if I would do something else. So I'm picking these things from the '80s that I think now would have a great reboot, because there's nothing current that I would reboot. It did such a great job that I wouldn't touch that franchise at all. Aliens. I mean, I believe that Ridley Scott was going somewhere with Prometheus, and I'm not sure what in Alien Covenant and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure I could come up with a really, really good alien story. I have faith that if Robert Rodriguez were to continue with the Predator series, I think I really enjoyed what he did with Predators. I think Predators was a righteous sequel, like Predator, Predator 2, Predators. Those anything in between. I'm like, bleh.
I mean, I saw Predators and I thought it was more of a tribute film to the other two from what he did.
It does, but it also brought in the idea. First of all, it introduced us to, we didn't think about, the fact that, hey, we have hunting season and we have gaming areas now. Flipping it on us was fun. The other thing was that it was obvious, and I'm forgetting the actor's name. Who was this? Spoiler alert! If you haven't seen this, who was a serial killer? What's his name?
Oh, the guy from that '70s show.
Yeah. So, I was the entire film. I was like, I like it when a film can surprise me with a plot point. And the entire film, I'm like, well, what's he doing here? I mean, that's a badass killer. That's another badass killer. That's another badass killer. I'm like, what's he doing here? And then when I find out, oh, he's a serial killer. That's a different type of predator. That's a completely, that's not like your regular aggressive kind of predator. Yet they qualified him as, this guy hunts people for a living. I mean, that's what he does. I mean, imagine Dexter would have been on there. You know what I mean? So I liked the idea, and I liked the idea that we were visiting the Predator's planet because I always wanted to learn more about their culture. Alien versus Predator had a good idea of how to mix those two cultures together. Mixing them on Earth, I'm not entirely sure because they brought in the ancient alien stuff with that. I liked it as one of those. This is dumb, but I'm gonna watch it because it's fun. I mean, I get to finally see an alien and a predator fight, and the trailer sold me when the alien and the predator just came face to face, and I was like, must see. Sometimes that's all you need. You just need a moment in the trailer to go.
It's a sci-fi Freddy versus Jason. This is like, you don't want to think, you just want to enjoy the blood splatter.
Yeah, sometimes people give those movies like a really hard time, and I'm like, man, that thing wasn't meant to win an Oscar. That thing wasn't even meant to be Best Picture of the Year. It was meant to be just like fun, watch some popcorn. Hey y'all, you want to see some predators and aliens kill each other? Yeah, let's go. All right, it's cool. let's do this. That's what that was. I'll tell you what, my first trailer for when I did The Other Side, my wife didn't like it. Oh, that's my test, by the way. This woman, Natalia, she also works with me. She's a makeup artist, and so I work with my wife. But she is the first person to skip a movie. Like, your poster better be right, your trailer better get her, and you better get her within that first 15 seconds to a minute. Because if not, she's like, nah, next. She will go through Netflix like, nah.
So she doesn't even play the trailer. She just get that little clip that Netflix tries to play.
Yeah, she gets a little bit of a clip or whatever the case is, and she's like, nope, nah.
That's how I pick the shows I watch on Netflix.
Yeah, she will scan through. So if I couldn't catch her, she made me switch my whole trailer up. I thought my trailer was like moody and it was slower and stuff like that. She's like, I'm already bored. And I'm like, dang, all right.
Like,
Let me
she didn't
change
even
this
get
up
a
a little
minute
bit.
into that.
Yeah, and that my trailer is only a minute long. So that's the problem. It's only a minute. I made it purposely a minute because I'm like, well, my short movie is only 12 minutes, and I've already got to give away a minute without giving away everything. So it's already a twelfth of the movie. So actually, if you take off the credits, it's only a 10-minute movie, so it's a tenth of the movie. So yeah, my teaser had to be like legit, but that's my test right there. Like if I want to know whether or not a movie's gonna be whack or not, I just play to her and she's like, bah, whack. Don't tell him you're married to me. Whack. she's brutal, man.
She's like, I'll take the movie credit. Just leave out that we're married.
Yeah. Take that part out. Change my last name. Use the first part of my last name.
Yeah, this has been great, man. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Yeah, definitely. We
Sweet, man.
appreciate it.
Thanks for the honor, man. Thanks for the honor.
Well, I guess just to make it official, would
And we
you like
out
to
here.
plug yourself?
Yeah. So my Twitter handle has been updated because the Mr. Creative was not working. So the Mind of Damian, that's my Twitter. Mr. Creative Freedom or Damian Alpizar on Instagram. I have both. Mr. Creative Freedom is kind of like it was my art and my getting out there. But now that people want to know me as Damian Alpizar the Director, you can follow me on both. The Other Side feature on Instagram or Don't Say Her Name on Facebook. Come follow us on Facebook. We drop updates. Right now, The Other Side will be seen on iHorror. We just were featured in Horror Hound. So now we official selection for iHorror. So the iHorror Film Festival is coming up. For those of you who haven't got a chance to see it, I think it's going to be a digital film festival. So it'll give you a chance to not only support independent filmmakers and horror filmmakers, but it also gives you a chance to see our film, The Other Side. And these people, iHorrors, they were the ones that launched the Nightmare trailer. So they're fam, and in a sense of like, they are very supportive of the independent horror film genre. And so anyone who does that is fam to me. So yeah, those are my plugs. Hold on. Hey, what's up? This is Damian Alpizar, Director of The Other Side. If you are watching NerdTots, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. These guys are nerding out right now. You can talk about D&D, comic books, anything you want. This is the spot to be at. NerdTots, hit them up. What's up?
And we out of here.
Like that.